Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Virtual Happy Hour again with me. I'm Raina from Garden District Bookshop. And tonight I am talking to Krystle Sims-Cameron, who is the founder of For the HortiCulture. It's a nonprofit project here in New Orleans that is built to help bring the culture of backyard gardening back to New Orleans, and particularly to Black families in the New Orleans area. And I'm really excited to talk to her tonight about that and about books and about gardening tips. And hi, Krystle.
Hello, how are you doing, Raina?
Very good. How are you this evening?
I am wonderful, thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
I am super excited to talk to you. I ran into your Instagram just randomly, really. And then I was like, oh, she's local. And so I Googled, and that is when I found like you're one of Gambit's 40 under 40 this year. And I was like, wait a minute, people know about her. I was like, oh, I found something. And then I'm like, no, she's everywhere. People already know.
A little bit. It's really funny. I am a native New Orleanian, born and raised, really strong roots here. And then my husband and I moved away for about 10 years, and we came back in the summer of 2019. And I was really gonna just lay low for a while, chill out, get my bearings back in town. And then obviously 2020 happened. And I did what I always do, which is, well, what needs to be done? What can I focus my energy on? And I think as soon as I started doing that, it was like, oh, wait, she's doing this thing. And I was, wait, I was just trying to lay low. I was just going to hang out. So It's been a little bit of a whirlwind, but I've been really, really fortunate that people are so supportive of the things that I'm putting my energy and my expertise and my thought towards, and people have been just feeding into it, and it's been really awesome.
I think you tapped into something that was really necessary. You found this, hole in nonprofits and in the community in general. And that probably has a bit to do with why everyone's like, oh, you're doing this thing? Yes, we're so happy there's someone doing this thing.
Yeah, so it's that's literally my job. So I'm an insights consultant, insights expert. And so I work with organizations like Fortune 500 companies or nonprofits or even entrepreneurs to help find what's missing in the marketplace and what do people need and want in their lives, and how do they want to get it. And so it just so happened that at that moment in time, I could see, this training, I can see this hole here, and I go, oh, I could fill that hole. Like I could actually do that. And so it kind of, two things sort of colliding at once, this intense sort of desire and this drive for a lot of Black women to go to seek out, like, how do I want houseplants. I want to garden. I'd like to feed my family, nutritious food from my own backyard. At the same time that a lot of people were really looking for a way to show their support to underrepresented, under-resourced communities and go, I just want to help, in a way that feels good to me, that feels like it feeds my soul at the same time. And gardening people, once you get into a gardening community, you understand that gardening people are such givers. It's like, oh my God, that plant is so pretty. Oh, do you want a clipping? And they're cutting off pieces of their plant for you, right?
Yes, I have to beg them not to, because I'm so afraid I'm going to kill it. Like I have a friend. So first of all, my sister, she gardens all the time, and I have a friend who's gardening all the time. Mm-hmm. And anytime she has a successful plant, she wants to share it with me. I'm like, please don't. Like, just let me come and enjoy it, or like just give me a tomato or something. Like I want to be a part of your joy, but I'm afraid I'm going to kill it. So
the joy, but not the responsibility. Can we just talk about how pretty it is?
Yes.
Like to grab a fruit or a veggie every once in a while. But I was like that for a long time too. And it took me a while to gain confidence in taking care of plants. And it's so funny because people come to me all the time with plant questions. And I'm really honest with you. I have killed my fair share of plants. There's one or two on my house plant shelf right now they've got tickets to the struggle bus and they're about to board. Some life happens. Okay.
This is how, when I was reading through your Instagram and I saw you were like super honest about like how, this plant isn't doing well. I don't know what is happening. Like, and I'm trying to figure it out. I was like, we're going to get along.
Yeah.
I know, like, we are going to hit it off. This is going to work.
I'm not some earth goddess by any, means at all. I'm curious. I research, I go look at stuff, and sometimes I kill a plant, and it's not the worst thing in the world. It happens, and some plants aren't for everybody. There's plant fads now, plant trends. And people, new into the growing world and like, oh my God, I have to get a fiddle leaf fig. Do not. It will die and hurt your feelings. And you will never want to get another plant again. And there's some people who are great with cacti and succulents. And I'm an over lover. And I will drown one and I just leave them alone now. They're not my people. So.
Yeah. Okay. Me too. Everyone says those are the easiest. Oh, they're so easy. Just put it in the pot and just sit it on a windowsill or something. And I'm like, I don't know what you people are doing, because my succulents look great for like a week-ish, too, and then they just die. And I think that is like, I think patience is a bit with gardening in general. Yeah. You have to like kind of know what it needs and then back off. Yeah, I'm not good at backing off. I want to get in there.
An over lover. I'm like, what do you need? What would you like?
Right?
Can I put you in another pot? And they're like, no, don't touch me.
Like, stop, leave me alone. I'm like, no, but I what do you mean you don't want to hug? I don't understand people like that. I don't understand plants like that.
Yep. Yeah. We should have the spines should be a clue, right? But they are not. They're not. I'm still like, would you like to cuddle? You want to hang out? And they really don't want to be bothered. So yeah, they're not my plant people.
Let me take just a minute here to tell everybody that is watching, if you have any questions or plant stories or anything that you want to share, put them in the comments. We can see that and we will answer in real time. Anytime it comes up, just type it in there. All right. So if you weren't big, like you weren't particularly a gardener before very much, what makes you a gardener now? Like, how did you really get over that and move into?
I think having a very intense curiosity about what I was failing at. Like, why am I screwing up? It was like, what am I doing wrong? I started gardening back in 2012, right before I had my son. And that was really an attempt for me to learn about and gain some more control over what he was eventually going to eat. Like, I decided I was going to nurse, and then all of a sudden, how you're in your third trimester and you're sitting up and you got the nesting thing happening, and your brain goes, what about when he's 6 months? And I'm like, oh God, what's he going to eat?
Yep.
And so I said, I started doing all this research and looking things up, and some kind of way got a wild hair that I was going to like try to grow some stuff that he could eat. I don't know. It was the bed rest. And I remember I got some little starter plants that I thought I was going to, begin to garden with, and I killed them almost immediately. And I was like, I don't know how I screwed this up that badly, but I'm going to have a baby human in a little while, and I cannot be the person that kills every living thing that they're touching. I need to know how I can do this. And so it was really just, the internet is a wonderful thing. It's a double-edged sword, but there are people who go deep, deep, deep into their passions and what they love. And like I mentioned before, garden folks are so giving, and so they want to inform people. They want to share their joy with folks. So I would ask questions that were absolutely asinine, and people would be like, I can't wait to tell you about it. And they would just teach me and coach me and mentor me, which is why I do that on my Instagram and on my Facebook as well. Because I would not have learned anything that I know about gardening if it weren't for people in real life sharing their garden, sharing their experience, taking a picture of a plant that they germinated to show me, yours is normal, this is fine. Because there's tons of resources, but it's the real human to human connection that keeps people sort of in community.
Absolutely. The people are really why you stay, I feel like, in any community. Mm-hmm. In anything you get into, that might keep your interest for, a little while. But the people will make or break whether you stick with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Absolutely.
So when you you started For the HortiCulture, mm-hmm. did you, and like you said, you were trying to lay low, but also you're starting this thing to kind of reach out to other people. So like, how do those two things go together?
It really wasn't. It wasn't even supposed to be that. So the idea for the HortiCulture happened. I was at one of my many Lowe's trips, and I'm going through the garden center and was getting stuff for my own garden. And if you Pinterest hard at all, you've seen all these palette designs and reuse things. And I had always been looking for a palette that I could do a project with, but they're so big usually, and they're dirty, and they got snails on them, or they have nails, right? So every time I'd find a palette, it wouldn't be usable. Well, I was at Lowe's one day, and they had what I can only describe as a mini palette, maybe 2 feet across, and I could fit it in my trunk. So I said, "Are you guys tossing this out? Can I have it?" And the lady says, "Sure." So I buy whatever ridiculous amounts of plants and materials I had, this free palette, and I bring it home. And so I'm looking at it, and I decided that I would take a bunch of these nursery pots that I had a bunch of extras of. You take a plant from the store, right, and you pot it, you have all these nursery pots. So I had a bunch of square ones, and I said, oh, it'd be really cool if I connected them to the back of this palette and grew strawberries in them, and then the strawberries would kind of hang over the front of it, and they'd be hanging. That'd be cute. So I did it, and after I did it and I planted my herbs and my strawberries, it occurred to me, oh, this is great, because even if I didn't have a yard or I didn't have I could just lean this on the sunny part of my porch and grow something. And I thought to myself, there's a lot of women that I've heard through my Facebook, through my Instagram, who are like, oh, I would love to garden, but I don't have any space. I don't have a backyard. All I have is a balcony. It's like, so I want to just make these little palette gardens for a bunch of women and show them that they can start gardening and feeding their family from that. So it was right around the time Blackout Tuesday was happening. And I went on my Instagram, which at that point had before it had 700 followers. Blackout Tuesday happened. A bunch of these big gardening plant Instagram accounts had found my account and started amplifying it to their followers. And then I ended up with 2,500 followers overnight.
Wow.
I thought to myself, okay, I never do stuff like this. My hands were trembling as I was doing it. I was like, I don't know. This is a weird way to put myself out there. But I did a video and asked all my followers, I said, hey, new people, nice to meet you. I'm, glad you're here. Let me tell you what I'm about. Let me tell you that I've created a safe space for Black women who are interested in gardening and growing and to ask all their questions, And I said, look, I really want to do this thing for women who feel like they don't have the resources to garden. If all of you guys gave me $1, I think I could build a large amount of these and pass them out around New Orleans. And I think I asked for $2,500. And in a week, we had raised $10K.
Wow.
And after that, it was $20K. And I was like, I now it has to be a thing. This
right.
Is
you can't just bail on this now. You are in.
Yeah. So it kind of took on a life of its own, because I was just going to every weekend I'll build 2, find 2 random ladies, give them 2, give them out. And that was going to be it. And then it was, oh, I can't wait to see what you do. Oh, I can't. And I was like, oh,
okay.
It's a thing that I want to completely follow through on, and so that's how it became sort of as big as it is right now, but not on purpose.
That's amazing, though. I mean, that goes back to community, right? You just sort of reach out, you're like, oh, let's see what happens. Maybe I can do a little bit with this, and all of a sudden the community responds.
Yeah, and in a big way, and and I felt encouraged, definitely encouraged, and there were so many women who were asking, how do I be a part of it? How can you help me start to grow? And so I had now this new, larger, expanded community of people who not only were interested in plants, but who were looking at me how do I get started doing this? And, I didn't want to let anybody down. And it makes me happy. It really makes me happy. So why not?
It's amazing. I mean, I think it's so, there's a bit of luck and all of those little things, of course. Yeah. But it's such a great idea and a great project, and then to see it actually be able to take off in that length of time, is amazing.
Sometimes I forget how little time it actually has been, because that was just in June. maybe July.
I know. I mean, oh my gosh, just like along with everything else, this year seems like it's so long. It's very weird how you think, oh no, that was a couple weeks ago. And you go, oh wait, no, it wasn't. Or vice versa. You say, oh, that was like 6 months ago. And all of a sudden it was like 2 weeks ago.
That was Tuesday.
Right. I don't
know. Has a different meaning right now. I was telling somebody, I feel like I've lived like 7 or 8 versions of myself during this COVID like era, because I was really into this, and then I was really into that, and then I did this and I did that. I've tried a little bit of everything, and then it's like, oh, it's only November. Like,
there's like a whole other month.
Time pass,
right?
Yeah.
And I remember back like when everything started, we keep thinking, oh, the end of the year we'll be doing this and we'll be doing that. Yeah. And in the back of my mind, I was like, I don't know if we will be, and here we are, and we're not.
Right.
We're not, doing those things.
I have one of those blank whiteboard calendars on this wall over here. And somewhere around August, I just stopped filling it out. I was like, look, whatever tomorrow brings, we'll deal with it. I'm not filling out the calendar until I know that the world is back on track. But
yeah, I had a planner for this year.
Mm-mm.
No.
I went to Michael's for craft supplies. And the craft that I wanted to do involved using some of the imagery from calendars. So I asked when I walked around the entire store, and I was ready to go. So I found someone and I said, can you just point me in the direction of where the calendars are? She said, we did not get 2021 calendars. For it to be November, almost December. And they're like, yeah, we don't have calendars for 2021. Nobody's holding their breath for the new year. They're like,
wow.
Anything.
We do have calendars at the bookstore, but nothing like we normally do. We normally have like 2 or 3 spinning racks that are completely full. We've got them sitting around, and now we pulled our 2 spinning racks out, and some of them we had to double. Double the calendars to fill the whole thing up. So we do have some, but it was like, why order as many? And then also like with printing demands and everything, we haven't, even some that we ordered, we haven't gotten in because they're just not getting around to printing. They're choosing to print things that are like more timely, I guess.
I get it. I think we're learning a lot too in this moment about, it's definitely been an overused word, an overused term since March, but what is essential, right?
Right.
And we focus a lot on essential workers who, I mean, God love them, so thankful that they keep the world spinning while the rest of us try to, stay at home and flatten the curve and all that stuff. But processes, we've learned what processes are essential, what goods are essential. There's a lot to be said about the idea of, arts as being essential, right? And people go, oh, well, those things are kind of fluffy. And then, the fight to put the A in STEM so that it becomes STEAM,
right?
Why that's even a conversation or a debate. And then you realize when you have nothing else to do, what do you turn to? Books. You turn to coloring books. You turn to manga. You turn to, television series, and everything about the extra stuff became essential.
Yep.
Because that is what's keeping us going at this moment in time. So it's been really interesting to sort of, in this moment, just watch people come to that realization that there are a lot of things that I thought were absolutely necessary that are fluff. And there are some things that I thought I could live without or do without, and I absolutely cannot. And when I get a chance, I never want to be without them in the high priority of my life ever again, which I think is kind of cool to have that collective thought.
Absolutely. I think this is a different thing than has at least ever happened in my lifetime, I think, maybe. We are all experiencing it together, and not just America. Because I thought, okay, maybe 9/11, right? But 9/11 was much more of a just America. We all experienced that together. But this is all over the world.
Yeah.
Forever, all over the world, we will have shared these same types of experiences with people in Spain and China and Brazil. And like, no matter where we go or who we talk to from now on, we'll have our COVID story. Like,
Yeah.
it's like our Katrina story, which is very local to the, Gulf Coast, and then 9/11, which is very local to America. And now we have this COVID where, like, this is almost like a World War level of where were you, what happened to you.
Nobody is unscathed, and it's really been interesting too, the exercise and empathy that is required when you look out on the world and see how everyone is having to deal with it, and how life circumstances make dealing with this very same thing. It is the same thing, but it's not happening to everybody in the same ways. And that's helping people unpack, oh, my life is different because I have 1, 2, 3, these circumstances. So when this huge barrier or, challenge comes up, I can respond in these ways. Other people cannot respond in that way. And how does that actually play out in their lives,
Yeah,
it's been very, very interesting to watch people kind of have that like mind expansion moment. Like, wait, there are other ways to like do this and experience this and be, oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, we're going to look outside ourselves a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we can then learn to do that with other things, not just COVID.
Right. It would be nice if there was some crossover for sure.
So we do have a question, a gardening question. So Christy asks, what veggie plants would start well this time of year? She's in Florida. So
okay.
It's going to make a difference.
Yes, it makes a huge difference. So when you start growing an outdoor garden, typically a vegetable garden, you have to first identify what zone you live in, what agricultural zone you live in. And the zone that you live in is going to be depending on, it's basically a latitudinal, longitudinal thing, but it tells you what your first and last freeze dates of the year are. So the higher you get up in the numbers, it's the longer warm season that you actually have. So we're really lucky because here in Louisiana, in southern Louisiana, we're in zone 9B, which means that we have a very long growing season comparatively. Right now, it's not freezing cold outside. We're going to get a mild freeze in the next couple of days. It's not freezing cold outside all the way into November. Right? Even December, you grew up here, there were many, many Christmases that you wore shorts for Christmas. Oh, yeah. And so Florida, they start in zone 9. I think they might start in zone 9A somewhere in northern Florida, but get all the way to 10B, which is super tropical. So depending on where Christy is in Florida, there are a couple of things that are typical winter vegetables that she could be growing for a longer season. Now, starting is a little difficult right now. Typically, even for plants that you're going to grow in a warmer climate in November, could be a little bit difficult to start because we're really just not getting the light right now. There's not a lot of sunlight, so I'm always fighting how dark it gets so early at this time, and like chasing the sun around. I grow a lot of things in containers so I can kind of chase the sun throughout.
Oh, that's nice. That's a nice perk I hadn't thought of.
Yeah. So you get that, that in such a temporary space that you can actually, if you want to, depending on how big they are, and you get big and hefty, you're like, you will have to make do right there where you are. So as far as starting things for Christy, I think probably the leafy greens, especially the ones that do pretty well in the cooler parts of the season. So we're talking like your collards, your kales, your mustard greens, things like that. If they're not too young, can definitely be, you can optimize their growing time right now in a container and make sure that they get enough sun. You can also, people love getting grow lights and starting things indoors and making sure that they have their, starts for the spring. And luckily for us, being in the higher up hardiness zones, we also get to start our season a lot earlier too. So we're putting things out in February, March, when other people are waiting for the ground to thaw out enough to stick a shovel into. So if you don't have time to start stuff now, Christy, I might think about what can I germinate in the later parts of the season. What can I germinate December, January, so that February, March, when the ground is ready for you to plant things, you'll have your starters that are ready for that time too.
That could be fun too, keeping the starters inside
Yeah.
and then having to move them in. I have a friend who lives in New Hampshire, and I go to visit her. Usually it's like the middle of May, and it gets me, it doesn't, it's fun now, but the first few times I went to go visit her after she moved there, I was like, she's like, oh, let's go to a plant sale. I'm like, okay, cool. And we go to the plant sale, and they are so excited because it is just now, like mid-May, like they can start putting things in the ground. I'm like, wow, I love you. I can never live here.
Yeah. I lived in Germany for a while, and that was the first time that I understood why people get so crazy about spring, right? Because I was like, oh yeah, spring is nice. The weather's nice. There's flowers. Okay. No, when you've been in the dead of winter, when it does not get sunny outside until 10 a.m.-ish, when the clouds break and you've been in sludge and snow and it gets dark at 3:45, the first time you see something green poke out of the snow, you lose your mind. Oh my God, it's coming! And so I totally get it now, because it's like coming out of a fog, really, and remembering that the earth is habitable. we live on this planet for a reason. So yeah, no, I totally get it now. But here, I was like, what? Everybody gets so freaked out about spring, and there's spring this and spring that, because we're spoiled. We do not get a real winter. We just don't. We get like, it's 35 for 72 hours, and then it's done. That is our winter.
I call it fashionably cold here.
Yeah.
It gets just cold enough to wear tights, maybe a little tall boots, your cute hat, not your I'm gonna die hat, but but your cute hats, maybe some cute gloves, a cute scarf if you want to, like a cute sweater.
Right.
Love it. And then it warms back up and you're good. That is exactly where I want to be. I want to be fashionably cold.
Yes, because if you buy a coat here, like your cute little coat that you're going to wear for the winter here, and you try to bring that to Chicago on, let's say, a work trip in February, you will find out very quickly that the coats down here that are puffy and they look like they're really warm are nothing against the hawk. Like you have no protection whatsoever. So we have cute winter clothes and don't know that we have to layer several pairs of socks. And what kind of underwear are you wearing? Are you long johned up? Oh, you thought you were just going to walk out in a bra. That's not going to happen. You're going to.
And I don't understand. I need to, like, if I have to wear too many layers, I don't even know what I'm doing. Yeah. I feel like the kid in A Christmas Story. And I know I haven't crossed that line, but I'm like, I don't know what's happening. I don't even, I feel myself, I don't even know.
I was in Denver for last November, and I thought I was being cute because I went and got all the like thin REI stuff. I got a thin little layer, then another little thermal layer, and then a nice little, so you don't look like a giant puffball. But as soon as you walk into any place that has ambient heat, you're sweating 10,000 buckets. So it's just, there's no way to be comfortable in real winter. Why did people settle in places where it freezes? I don't understand.
I don't know. I do often wonder. I was like, okay, they were heading across the plains and they went, here's a good spot. Right. I don't think so.
Did the caravan break down? Like the guy who used to make the wheels died of dysentery and we just have to stay here.
This is the Oregon Trail. Like there's only rattlesnake bite, dysentery. There's only a few ways to go. Right. So that must have been one of the ones that got it.
It had to be a key component of the traveling movement that just died off. And they're like, I guess we're stuck in Ohio. I guess Cleveland is it.
This is where we live now.
Figure it out. This is where we live now.
Also, like no one went, I'll try south.
Right.
You never hear those stories. You never hear like they're going across and like, no, let's turn this way and see what happens.
I probably told them about mosquitoes though. So to be fair, we have our own plagues, right? We have
That is
mosquitoes and cockroaches that fly. So, you give and you take.
yeah, yeah. And those are the things we've learned to live with. I'm like, oh yeah, it's just a cockroach. Look, just
Yeah,
step
it's fine.
on it or get some bug spray or something.
Your
It's
friends from out of town will lose their mind the first time they see a palmetto bug. They're like, and pack my bags, send them via Greyhound. I'm already on the plane. I can't do it. I'm like, it's just a roach.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. They'll say, oh, God, I saw this roach. And I'm like, okay, well, was it this big or was it this big? Because that makes a difference.
Yes.
Like, was it a palmetto bug? No, you're good. It's fine. Like, was that in your kitchen?
You want to see a bigger roach than a smaller roach.
Exactly.
And they don't understand that concept.
No. I'm like, you're going to be okay. It's going to be all right.
Oh, that's my good friend Reedy, who's in the comments, and she was saying we literally throw sheets over our plants and call it winterizing. Look, when they said that there was going to be a freeze this weekend, I'm looking around like, what plastic tarp do I have that I can just go like drape over the plants for 72 hours and call it a day? Where I know that I have people that I have in my online plant community who have shut it down for the season. I'm not going outside. All my plants are done with. And they're like, I'm just looking at all the people in zone 9 and zone 10, and you still have things that are green. And they're, waiting. They're wishing for spring. And we just throw a blanket over it and they'll be fine. Nothing will die. All the stuff that's supposed to die in October is still alive out there.
Yep. No problem. So we've talked about what you do gardening, but what does For the HortiCulture do? Okay,
so I'm glad you asked. For the HortiCulture, like I said, it wasn't really a fully formed like, oh, this is what's going to happen for our nonprofit. It sort of just organically grew. And so I had a lot of ideas about what we were going to do, what we we're going to be capable of, and then realized very quickly in the middle of a global pandemic, as sort of a one-woman show, how do I make this a thing that's actually viable and doesn't completely suck the life out of everybody who is involved? Like, how do we do it in a sustainable way? So for our very first season, we had 15 new edible gardeners some of them who had never gardened before, some of them who've had house plants before, and some of them who have killed edible plants before. And they wanted to feed themselves and feed their families, more nutritious food that they'd grown themselves. And so what we did was we outfitted everyone with this container garden that included 8 separate buckets. We actually use 5-gallon drum buckets, like the kinds that are food safe that you might get your local Chinese restaurant might get like a giant thing of soy sauce in theirs, and that's what they use to fill all there. So they're food safe, so you can grow things that are edible in them. And basically went through a sort of makeshift curriculum of how do you prepare and cultivate a container garden that gives you edible food in a small footprint, because everybody doesn't have the same amount of space. We're also dealing with a lot of folks who are renters and not owners. And so I've had that sort of heartbreaking moment where I realized I've put all this love and tender care into growing this garden on land that doesn't belong to me. And when I move, I have to leave it. And that's not very fun at all. So we started out with just making sure that all 15 of our gardeners had container gardens, worked with some local organizations that helped us out with soil and compost. Shout out to the Composting Network who supplied a lot of that stuff. Compost Now actually just did a class with us 2 weeks ago where Lynn Serpy taught everybody about how to compost their waste so that we can create our own sort of black gold in our backyards to feed our plants and things like that. And so we've been slowly learning together how to have a container garden to get the most food out of the smallest footprint. And I really just wanted to provide an experience for folks who were interested and who had sort of that passion, but may not have felt either resourced as far as like, I can't buy the materials. I don't know what materials to buy, or, when I get it, I don't can somebody walk me through the process? So we have a little private Facebook group where we all kind of hang out and share pictures of our gardens and ask questions that, we know somebody in the group is going to be able to help with. And I, as an insights professional, one of the things that I wanted to focus on were the questions and concerns that I know come up a lot for Black women as new gardeners. And some of those things that come up for everybody, but the way that they come up culturally and trying to respond in a culturally resonant way, making it a safe space for everyone. Because bugs are a thing. They exist in the garden. Most people do not like them at all. They can be a huge deterrent to somebody actually maintaining a garden because I don't want to go out there and see any of them, right? My mom is a new gardener. I got my mom started gardening this year, and we just for Thanksgiving, we had the greens that she grew in her garden as one of our dishes, and they are beautiful and they are flourishing, but my mom does not do lizards. Okay.
But lizards are kind of good for a garden, aren't they?
They are, right? Okay. So now she's got a little bit of they're not friends, okay? I don't ever think they're going to be click tight. But if she sees a lizard in her garden, she's not trying to shoo it away because she knows that it's going to be helping with the pest control, in the garden. So it's really just kind of making sure that we develop those healthy relationships with gardening so that if you really want to continue to do this and expand and make sure that you can grow food for your family, grow food for, your neighbors. That was a thing we used to do in New Orleans. A lot of times, Black neighborhoods in specifically would have someone who was just fabulous at growing sweet potatoes. Like that's just her thing. So we know when it's time there, she's going to make sure everybody's got 2-3 pounds of sweet potatoes. Mr. Earl down the street is great with okra, and he grows more okra than he could cook and can. So when we need it, he's got it. Bell peppers here, tomatoes here, giant pecan tree in the lady's house across the street, bring a bag and you could get some. That was just part of our culture. And so when something like a global pandemic happens, and not only are people feeling less safe going to the grocery store, not only are people faced with, strapped resources for things that are essential, you start wondering if this goes on for this long, what happens to commercial agriculture? What happens when the grocery stores are out of certain things? What are we going to do then? And so there were so many people who were just kind of looking for some confidence and some assurance that if everything else in the world goes crazy and breaks down, I have some sort of way to not only take care of myself, but I could also help to take care of other people. So we do food, and then we also have a medicinal and herbal component that we've been working on. I'm a big fire cider, tincture maker sort of person, and all that stuff comes straight from the garden.
Yep, and knowing what it is, knowing what to even look for. Like, actually, it's interesting. I don't know. I feel like it's interesting the way I kind of got into that part of it is I love hiking. I love going out and hiking and stuff. And many years ago, I hiked a bit of the Appalachian Trail. And when I started that adventure, I was really reading up, on not only the trail itself, but what the animals you're going to encounter and the plants you're going to encounter and what happens if you get stuck out there, what to look for, what's good, what's bad, things like that. And I'm by no means an expert, but I really remember those things because to me at that time, I was like, I might get stuck out here. Something might go wrong. I need to remember these things. I need to have things. And it's fascinating. You get separated. Our world, the way we live it right now, is separated from everything like that. Where medicines come from, where your food comes from, whether that's veggies or meat, it doesn't, where that all comes from. You just go to the grocery store and it's magically
there and packaged and, ready to go. And so the two things that I want to say about that. One, watching our new gardeners, and especially those who, they're like the picture takers and folks who have kids and things like that. Watching people discover the phases of a plant as it goes from a seedling to the full-blown plant, and what do the leaves of a bean plant look like? What do the leaves of a tomato plant smell like? Wait, this is what the flower looks like. And as the flower gets pollinated and turns into the fruit, like that whole process of where our food comes from, particularly our vegetables and fruits, is kind of lost on us, because how many people do you know, if you lined up fruit and then lined up the leaves, could tell you what is a banana leaf versus what is a tomato leaf versus what is a pepper leaf, or what kind of pepper it is. And so that is really, really cool to see people come to that sort of intimate knowledge of where their food comes from. But also going back to the whole hardiness zone thing, we live in a place where plants thrive. Were it not for human development, this entire place would be a wilderness full of thousands and thousands of plants, some of them that have medicinal properties, some of them that are edible, and a lot of them that still exist in these disturbed and undisturbed areas of, within the city limits. And so people walk by elderberry trees all the time and don't realize that's medicine. Like, you're literally walking past a medicinal plant that could help you once they stop, once they actually fruit. The time that it takes between when it fruits and when you can create a usable tincture from it, that's actually the start of flu season. And so it's really it's beautiful the way that nature provides for us and all the things that are available if you have the eyes and the knowledge to seek it out and know where it is. But it's still here. It hasn't disappeared. We just have lost a lot of the connection that we used to have to what is readily available, that you don't have to pay for it. You just have to know about it.
Right. You just have to know about it. And Stacey, yes, the idea that these, your fruits and your vegetables are a flower as well, like it has to flower in order for it to turn into a fruit or vegetable. Anytime you see it in real life, like I think for most of us, if you remember back maybe to science class when, I don't know, late elementary school, early middle school, and there's like, you have to label the parts of a plant and then you pass and then you never look at it again.
Yep.
That's generally as many times as a lot of us have seen that process, it's just on paper, and then to actually see it. And another piece of that too is, we're conditioned for our fruits and vegetables to look a certain way in the grocery store.
Yeah.
So conditioning yourself, looking at a tomato plant, for example, and you're like, oh, well, this one must not be good. Like, it's just a weird shape, or it's just, the color's a little different or something. Cut it open, taste it. Does it taste good? It's good.
Yeah.
This is an amazing tomato, but you're conditioned for them to be perfectly round, or like, a little bit oval, and that perfect.
Well, yeah, exactly. And those don't even taste that good. Once you start growing your own, as a general rule, if you had asked me anytime up until maybe 5 years ago, would you like tomatoes in your salad? No, I hate tomatoes. I don't understand why anybody eats tomatoes. The first time I grew my own tomato, I grew it. I don't even know why I grew it, because in my head I was like, I'm not going to eat this crap, but I just wanted to see it grow.
Everybody grows tomatoes because it's one of those ones that you hear grow tomato.
Yes.
That, to me, like, I feel like that's why, if I was going to start with the tomato, that's why. It's not because I love them. It's just because that's one of the short list of things you always hear people growing.
And I grew my own tomatoes. And then, of course, you put all this time and energy and effort into it. I'm not going to grow a tomato and then not eat the doggone tomato. So let me go. And it was delicious. It was sweet. It was juicy. It was everything. It was not mealy the way that a lot of commercially grown tomatoes are, because they're grown to be large and they're grown to look perfect. And when you grow a food for sustenance, and you don't care if it gets, the little, I forget the technical term for them, but I just call them stretch marks, because that's what they are. When the tomato grows too fast because it got overwatered by rain or whatever, and it grows bigger than the skin will allow, and it kind of, creates that little scar on it. I don't care. It's a juicier tomato. It doesn't matter if it's ugly or not. And it's so interesting. We're like, folks were like, okay, so I grew all these greens, but they're kind of like I saw the bugs in them. And so I'm freaked out about the fact that I've seen this being eaten by bugs. And so to walk somebody through the process, there were probably bugs on the ones before they got to the grocery store, before they triple washed it, before they put it in plastic, right? Or if there weren't bugs on it, there's other more insidious stuff on those leaves that you don't want to eat. Like at this point, I would rather eat a cabbage moth than eat pesticides because I know that the cabbage moth is just extra protein and the pesticide is extra cancer. So let me
also, like, you take the little moth, you wash it off, you flick it off,
exactly.
it's gone forever. It's not there anymore. Like,
so we are very removed from that, from the idea that everything that we eat grows in dirt, has dirt on it, has bugs living on it. If a bug is not trying to eat what you're growing in your garden, there's something wrong with it. Like, and also a lot of plants communicate. Plants are very, people know that plants are alive, but plants are a lot more alive than most people give them credit for. And so if a bug tries to eat a plant, for example, that some plants give off a chemical to try to ward off other bugs from eating them once they've gotten a bite taken out of them. A lot of those compounds are healthy for us. So you want a bug to bite your collards because it makes the collard green plant develop these compounds in it. And so the leaves of that plant are healthier for you when you eat them. But it's not a thing that gets taught. Like I've never learned any of this stuff. Elementary, middle, high school, college. This was not stuff that's readily available as a part of our American education system, or I don't know who on the planet really teaches this kind of stuff at all.
Well, I think it's generational, like you were saying before, because my grandparents and their parents, that generation, they grew things. They had huge backyard gardens, and they did. I know these stories, and from going back to my family, that side of my family is traditionally from Kentucky. Traditionally, that's the right word. From Kentucky, so like we would go back home, go to the family reunion and things, and they're doing the same thing that you're talking about. They've canned these beans, and then the neighbors have canned these yams, and then they have these different. Everybody has their specialty and their little patch. This is Aunt Annabelle's garden. That's that was her space, and it's just off by the side of the house and things like that. And then that got lost. My grandparents a little bit, and then my mom, and then us. Where we just don't do it, and that's really, it is a sad thing to think about, but something that's so easy for us to take our own action and just do.
Because you're so right. Most of us are just really, especially here in the South, if you grew up anywhere, along or below the Mason-Dixon line, you got one or two generations from somebody who was not just farming because it was fun and they got some overalls from the Gap. They were farming because that's how we ate, right? Yep. And my husband, his family is from Mississippi, and his grandmother that just passed a few years ago, he tells me he can remember going out in the summertime and like before breakfast, his job is to go get the 4 eggs we're going to eat for breakfast today from the chicken coop, right? And she was growing her own corn. She was growing her own tomatoes. She was growing, like his dad would just walk down the garden and grab a tomato and eat it while he's kind of, surveying everything that's around. So it's not like we're so far removed from it as far as generationally. It's just that we have to take it upon ourselves to regain that knowledge and to integrate it. I don't think it's the kind of thing that we need to completely say, okay, that's in our past and we're progressing and moving forward. I think that progress looks like integrating those things into what life looks like 2020 and beyond. You can have, high-speed Wi-Fi and a garden, right? You can do both of these things.
You can be standing in the garden looking at that leaf going, what happens when my leaf looks like blah, 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 blah. Oh, okay, this is what I need to do. That's fine.
Those things they're not mutually exclusive. There's a place for it. And just the gardening it is a place for me. And this is the other thing I wanted to bring to gardeners when I said I really want more women in New Orleans, more Black women in New Orleans, particularly to garden. It is such an anti-anxiety remedy to go outside, put your hands in the dirt, turn on some music, and just work. like all of my worry, all of my anxiety, when I travel for a living most of the time as a consultant, when travel was over and projects started getting cut, my husband is a tour manager. His tour that was about to go to Europe got canceled. We're all at home, and I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. My saving grace was going in the backyard, getting my hands dirty, amending the soil with compost, planting things out, planting stuff, and I felt like I was putting my hands on my problem and actively fixing it. And just to have that, for 30 minutes, an hour a day is such, even if you never grow a bean, like let's say your eggplants are a complete flop, right? The experience itself is worthwhile enough for anybody who is even remotely interested to say, let me just try it. Let me just give it a go. And if I get something to eat out of the deal, great. And if I don't, am I happier? Am I calmer? Do I have a moment to myself that feels like a refuge? Then that's what I grew. I grew myself, and that's fine if that's all you did.
That's amazing. It is kind of a meditative.
It is
thing to do.
It definitely is.
And once you get over that part of not being afraid to get dirty,
mm-hmm.
not, when you can really get in there, just take your rings off, just get in there.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of freeing as well.
Yeah. And healthy. Really, all this stuff it's really actually very healthy to have your hands in dirt. Wash them when you get inside, great. But it's very healthy to have your bare hands in the soil and remember that you are a part of all this stuff. You're not a part of your couch. You're not a part of, your hardwood floors. You are a part of this living, breathing element of the earth. Like this is home. And that's kind of just great to sort of take with you on a daily basis.
So if someone wanted to become a part of For the HortiCulture to donate funds or supplies or something, or to get help starting their own garden, where do we go? What do we do?
Yeah. Okay. So you can start, I think the easiest place to start is our Facebook page. You just go to facebook.com/For the HortiCulture, and that'll sort of bring you to what is currently our home base. We have a website that's being worked on, but that's the easiest place to sort of find everything. There's a link that is an application, and there's also a link that's for donation. And so we had such a huge response to our initial call for new gardeners that I actually have a waiting list for the spring. So I have most of the new gardeners that we're going to garden with in the spring. But if anybody wants to, DM me on Facebook, send a message to the page and want the application, I will certainly send it, because how many gardeners we actually have is really dependent upon the resources that we have. Because I don't want to turn anybody down who wants to grow food for their families. It's just how far we can stretch the donations, because we are a nonprofit. So to that end, the best way to donate to For the HortiCulture, I actually have it written behind me back here, but it's a bit.ly link. So it's a bit.ly/U, like capital U, give with a capital G, and then it's FTHC, which is For the HortiCulture, but you have to do it with capital F, lowercase t, capital H, capital C. It's really like...
Okay, I think I got it right. I just posted a comment with it. I think that's right.
Perfect. Yeah, so that's the best way to give a donation, because that donation link will allow you to give whatever you have. And we have had donations from as little as $5. We've had donations of $500. Whatever you can give is wonderful. And it also, that link allows people to decide to give a monthly gift. So you can set up where I would like to give For the HortiCulture $15 a month and set that up, on your debit card or on your credit card to do that on a regular basis. And that is where all of our funding comes from, is the gifts that we have received. We are a a fiscally sponsored project of Social Good Fund, which is an organization that basically they exist so that small projects, passion projects that people have in the community, and they want to be able to take donations, they want to be able to take, tax-free gifts from organizations and things like that. But I was not about to, like, there's one thing that I wasn't going to do with my pandemic time, and that was start a 501c3. No, thank you.
Yeah, the paperwork and
Yes.
do the fun part of the gardening and the helping.
Yes. So Social Good Fund we're a project of Social Good Fund, which means that every donation is tax deductible. And when you go through that donation platform, you'll get all of that, information on the back end, and I never have to worry about it. I can just worry about getting my hands dirty and making sure that my favorite pair of overalls is clean. That's those are my two number one priorities. So yeah, and that's how we make things happen.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm also going to share your Instagram because that is how I found you. But I know also not only do you showcase the project, but sometimes you'll also post little how-tos and things on your Instagram as well. So
yeah. So For the HortiCulture has an Instagram, and then my personal one, Ayana Plant Zant, is where I do a lot of my I guess mentoring, teaching, funny videos about accidentally making an exploding banana peel fertilizer, all of that kind of stuff. You'll see there on those two Instagram pages. And I know we're close to the end here, and I would be remiss if I didn't give an epic shout out to some wonderful, wonderful partners of mine, friends of mine, sisters of mine that I've been working with at the Coalition for Community Connection, which also formed during the pandemic. And we are working on an initiative called Nourish. It's a model for basically resourcing under-resourced neighborhoods in New Orleans. With the model includes an edible landscape and what we're calling lighthouses that have all of these community resources, job training, a tech center, classes, things of that nature, really to recreate sort of this network that we used to have in our communities. And I started working with these ladies. Reedy of Glory Gardens is one, Charm Taylor of the Living School out in New Orleans East, Brianna Thompson of Boxes by Bree, and so many others who've had, a pivotal hand in creating this model. And all of us at the same time during everything that was going on said, we need a way for people to know that they can rely on each other, that they can depend on each other, and that we're not looking to some great resource beyond, but that we realize that we are the resource that we need. And so this is what we came up with and what we've been working on very, very hard. September, we presented our proposal to the New Orleans City Council that had a great response. And so now we're working on actually making this a thing. And so For the HortiCulture is just one piece of what is sort of a citywide movement to make sure that folks in New Orleans who really need that social safety net not only get it, but help develop it for generations to follow. And so what I'm doing is just a little snippet of that work that's going on throughout the entire city.
And I love that. When we can rely on ourselves and learn that we can rely on ourselves, that's a big step towards bringing us all together and getting whatever it is that we want done. As we've learned many different ways, the more we rely on someone else, something bigger, some bigger organization, or just, someone from the outside, the less control we have over what really happens.
Absolutely. Yep. So yay. Raina, this was so much fun. Thank you so much for the invitation. And
thank you.
To share.
Thank you so much for joining me, for sure. I love what you're doing. I'm so happy that I could be a little bitty part of it. And if anyone has any further questions for Krystle, just if you have a moment, you can ask them here. But if they come up later about plants or the organization or anything else, just use the links that
Yeah.
I posted, get in touch with her. She's here. She'll answer. She'll put you in touch with the right people. It'd be awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Raina.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you very much. Bye, guys.